progress.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for showing up on this wonderfully chilly morning. I think it's great. I love it. And I'm glad that we have some people online. 2 of our council members cannot come today, and I think we have the 3rd one online with him. He is healing from knee surgery. Well, the purpose of this hearing is to receive public comments about our proposed 2026 budget, as well as our proposed millage rate for the 2025 ad valorem taxes. The budget and millage rate on the agenda to be adopted at regularly scheduled council meeting on the 18th of November at 10 o'clock. The council attended a budget work session last Friday to review and discuss the proposed 2026 budget. The work session and the presentation by Mr. Streetman were recorded and placed on our city website. I hope if you were in attendance that you all got to look at it and think about it and look at all the figures associated with it. As per state law, Sky Valley has to schedule 3 public hearings, and this is our first of our public hearings. We'll ask Mr. Streetman to review his budget, and we appreciate all of his hard work. It took many, many days and hours to put this budget together. We will allow for council and community input because that's what a public hearing is for. We ask that the community input follow the city charter procedures, which is when you are recognized that you, if you can, stand up. If not, that's okay. And you state your name and your address before you make a comment. Mr. Streetman, would you please review the proposed budget as it refers to the general fund? Or do you want to do talking points first?
No, I've got a PowerPoint, Madam Mayor, that we're gonna go with. Good morning, everybody. This, but you don't, can you share that PowerPoint somewhere?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is very similar to what most of you've seen the past few years. And it's a little different than the work session that we had on Friday. Anyway, she pulls that out.
It's taking its time.
It's taking its time. It's cold, yeah.
You shouldn't have, well, I thought I had it set up against scroll through, but we just may have to just. You have a mouse?
I don't.
You need a mouse?
No, it's okay.
Anyway, this is public hearing number 1, as the mayor said, because we are proposing a tax increase. It is, Georgia law does require 3 public hearings. Okay, 2026 proposed general fund. Anticipated revenue, just keep making it go down. $1,637,644. And it's broken up, revenue sources, property taxes makes up about 68%. We talked about that Friday. Other fees, franchise, permitting, excise, license, grants, fines, hotel, motel, short-term rental license. And then there's other taxes, penalty, interest, miscellaneous, et cetera. So if you tally all that up, it would come out to $1,637,634. That is approximately what we believe we will receive next year in operating funds. Go to the next slide. Looking at it, property tax makes up about 68%. The franchise fees about 4, license permits about 10, grants 11, 7% is the others, the interest, the miscellaneous, the penalties, et cetera. As I mentioned, I believe Friday, going back as far as 2020, property taxes made up about 73%. So we've been able to kind of drop that down, even as the revenues have gone up, kind of diversify that a little bit. So again, so we're not so dependent upon that, but anyway, just want to note that again. Next slide, please. You need to let somebody in.
I just did.
Okay. So expenditures, breaking down, admin 24%, building and grounds 5%, police 36%, fire 11%, roads 14%, miscellaneous 10%. That would be everything from the elections to housing development, to the council, the mayor's budgets, the cultural, et cetera, et cetera. So that's everything else that makes up that. Okay, next slide, please. As you see, 399, not quite 4 is admin, 84,000 building and grounds, 589, 325. I should have gone with the color police. Fire 174, 779. That would be an increase of about.
I can see
Yeah,
you.
got it. I'm sorry. If you go back to the next, go back, I'm sorry, got ahead. Anyway, and then the other code, housing, 155, so there's your total. So that's a breakdown, and like a lot of organizations, about 65% salary benefits, 35% operational. Next slide. Points to consider, as was mentioned earlier, I just learned talking about it. And I showed this in the work session. It is in several packets. The PT 32 form, which is the form that we use to calculate the rollback and millage rate, by holding the recommendation of 9.609, which is what this year, it would indicate a 6.62% increase. In dollars, not quite $94,000. As you look at the breakdown, 68,000, that's police. Not quite 15,000 is going to the fire department, and then over 16,000 is going to go to code enforcement. So pretty much all of that and then some, if you really want to look at it, it's going to public safety. To have a commitment there. So those are some points to consider. Next slide. Water fund, as I mentioned Friday, is tight. In fact, there's some things we know that we're probably going to be looking at as we get into to next year. Pull the other side up, if you don't mind, please. It's going to show, yeah, revenue. We do feel like we should be able to cover our expenditures with the revenue, but as you can see, $5,000 for the year. That's all intents and purposes break even. But again, that is something we probably will need to look at next year. And then the next slide, Summer. On the trash fund, it's even tighter. Costs continue to go, even though we no longer have the tipping fees. Every time we have the dumpster change, that's $500. Everything else is going up. It's essentially a break-even budget. So what? And I'm going to dive deeper into the budget. This is just the overview. Next slide, Sonia. Marketing. They are supposed to be meeting their last meeting, I believe, in early December. Historically, the past year or so, every entity is given $5,000. In this year's budget, from the city standpoint, there is a $5,000 line item contribution. I believe the verbal commitment from the POA, the club, and timeshare to each give $5,000. So that would be $20,000. And then historically also, they have brought their budget before the council, typically the first meeting in January, for that to be adopted. So we should have that from them later. The next slide. T-Splosh, as we all know, we did not know if it was going to pass. It did pass. We had talked about trying to come up with a budget, but with all of that unknown, it was kind of seemed a little premature. But I talked with Mr. Shove, Mr. English, our public works managers, and we will be having some conversations with the county to get a better understanding when those allocations are going to start coming in. And what we were told, we were thinking they should start back around April, May of next year. And if once they can kind of give us an idea about what those monthly disbursements will be, even though we're only going to have about a short year, we should be able to come up with some prioritized or servicing plans So we'll be presenting that to the council in January, so that's the plan. So, anyway, this is a brief overview here, and then Summer, if you don't mind. Questions, comments, I guess we'll just real quick, if anybody has any questions.
It's not, I just want to ask a question. I meant to ask this last year and didn't ever get around to it, but when we calculate the current digest, do we remove from the comparison between last year and this year, the new homes that were built? Or do they just go into the calculation for the total current
It's
digest?
just a total calculation.
So if we have 10% new homes here,
Yeah.
we have to basically reduce what we tax in order to keep the revenues the same as last year with fewer homes. Is that true?
If I understand the question correctly, I think so, but, well, when we receive that consolidation report from the county, it is just a total, it doesn't really,
Right.
it doesn't break it down, like it's 10 houses, 3 new houses.
So it's conceivable that you could have a 10% increase in your digest simply because of new homes, not because the value of anything changed.
Yeah.
But then you have to reduce your taxes in order not to have more revenue.
You have to roll back, yeah.
That
Yeah.
seems, that.
So some of that, I'm sure some of that is. I did meet with the county field appraiser probably half a dozen times over the year. Of course, they have the cutoffs, et cetera, but, they did go in and reassess a lot of properties here in the city. I know that he was up here a whole lot.
Yeah.
And there, you're right, there are some new houses. I would say it's a mix of both, but as you see from the 5-year levy, we've had that steady increase, but yeah, it's,
Your services go up, but your revenue stays flat.
well, keep in mind also, on journey, by law, you gotta have a flat budget because that's the balance.
I know about the budget,
Yeah.
but just revenue stays flat because you have to roll your millage rate
Yes,
back
exactly, yeah,
in order to achieve that.
yeah. And, we did look at doing that, but, there was really just no way to do that.
I understand that part.
And we've done it 3 years in a row and.
I know, I was just asking the question so that I could understand where that number comes from. So, yeah, I suspect that. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council?
So far.
Jason, are you gonna go more into?
I am, I'm gonna pull up that,
Before we talk, yeah, go ahead. About the general fund?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and do that for the people who have not been here before?
Yeah, well,
I'll
she's
do
gonna,
it.
she's gonna pull it up and vote, kind of like I did Friday. Nope. Yep. Okay, you'll go down just a little bit. This is what some of y'all heard Friday, not to reinvent the wheel, if you'll stop there, the 5-year digest. We talked about, as you can see, the net digest of 2020, 59 million, 21, 60, right at 65 million, 22, almost 78. 23, 87, 24, which is probably the biggest jump, almost 107 million. And for this year, 116 million, 519, 228. Of course, that's our net digest after we take the deductions off the homestead. And as you see, the millage rate is going from 15 down to 12 to 11 to 9. And of course, again, the recommendation is to hold the 9.609. By doing so, it would generate almost another $94,000, as I mentioned in that PowerPoint there. Next slide, so they're just gonna scroll it, it's okay. Again, this is that PT 32 form. This is the form that the state gives us that calculates what the rollback rate would be. Control just a little bit more. 9.012 would be the true rollback rate. And by holding the millage at 9.609, it would be a 6.62% tax increase. So. All right, we'll keep going. All right, we may have to zoom out a little bit. Hang on. So anyways, as I mentioned Friday, you have 3 columns here. The green column is this year's budget. The gray column is the budget versus actual, meaning how much we've either taken in or we have spent of this year's budget. And then the kind of peach color is the proposed budget. But as you can see, that the increase in the property tax, a lot of the other the other, the intangibles, the transfer, the franchise fees. We trend those out, what we see every year, that is kind of steadily going up. So as you go through those various funding sources, you kind of go down some. Even the hotel motel, the, court fines, interest revenue, et cetera, $1,637,634. So that is how much, as I showed in the previous slide, that is how much we anticipate receiving in revenue, for next year. And then the various line items, I'll just go through these. If I go too fast, stop me, but legislative, that's your council budget. We have added a little extra money there to, go towards, trainings that they'll go through. The executive, that's the mayor. Again, there's some extra money funded there. There will be some training that need to go through elections. Seems like the election's kind of hard to calculate. There, you know, we get a bill from the elections office. I'm sure it probably has to do with the number of candidates, et cetera, et cetera. But, historically, it's been somewhere between that 5,000 and 7,500. So we tried to budget for the max there. Administration, COLAs, FICA, all the stuff that's required to go through. Professional services, that's gonna be the city attorney, that's gonna be the auditor. Technical services, that's our software, communication, cell phone, internet, et cetera, et cetera. Travel training, as we talked about, workers' comp is going up, not so much on what we do because we're more desk bound, but, I'll get that in a minute. And then your, property and casualty insurance. We met with them, when did they come through? About 4 months ago, Jerry, 5 months ago, the guys, we went through every building. And, so I know we knew there was gonna be some, and, we found out we had some assets that were undervalued. So, they did some adjustment and there are some lag there, so I'm sure we're gonna see some more adjustments as we get into next year's
Are you
budget.
talking about the risk assessment?
No, I'm talking about just some of the assets, like our water tanks and
Okay,
stuff, we had them
okay.
undervalued. So, as they increase that, obviously, we know those premiums are gonna go up. Anyway, buildings and grounds. Everything from cleaning services to maintenance, the water maker, we have a contract with him, with the entrance and all of our, pickleball courts, the, pavilion, post office, et cetera, insurance. That has gone down a little bit this year. It's, from 86,000, 84,000, not a whole lot, but anyway, judicial. That's our city judge, he gets $250 a month to come. If you see 12, if he comes 12 times a year, it's $3,000, and then there's a little bit. We did cover his insurance for him, errors and omissions, life insurance. And, again, it went down $40, but, then next is police, which again, makes up 36% as proposed. Well, go just a little bit too fast. Again, you'll see a couple of increases we discussed Friday. They do have an extra officer, this year. So that is part of that right there. And then you, but we were able to reduce down some of the overtime, some of the temporary officers. A little bit of offset. It doesn't fully cover that offset, but there's a little offset. I know that Chief Thomas is here and he can kind of talk about it with me too, but I know he's done some modifications to the schedule, et cetera, that should help any of those overages on the salary side. Retirement, we had to follow more for that. And again, the workers' comp, that is steadily going up. We think that's gonna be somewhere 37, 38,000. And then our, the insurance, again, you know, everything, errors, emissions, the property and casualty for the assets, that's going up. Travel, education, training, supplies, materials, gas. That seems to still be hovering about $3 a gallon. It's gonna go down anytime soon. We're now running, we got more officers, more vehicles, they're putting more miles in, so there's an increase there. And then the $13,900, that is actually the capital expenditure for the capital lease for the chief vehicle. That is a one-time a year. We pay that once a year versus monthly. And that's a 5-year commitment. Of course, even though that's a lease, we will own that asset at the end of the term. And we've got, this will be the second of 5 payments here, once this is paid next year. So their budget would go from 521 to 589 as proposed. Fire, historically, they've got 1.5% of the digest, as the net digest goes up, there it goes up. They bill us quarterly, as you can see, 161.37. They're getting about 40 grand every quarter. They billed us 3 different times, so there's one more. If we haven't gotten that bill, we probably should be getting it day now for the fourth quarter, so that's where that goes to. And with the increase in the digest, that would go about, that's the extra 15,000 plus or minus I'm talking about. Roads, again, thank goodness for the T-SPLOST that has passed. A lot of those costs that was borne by the general fund, road maintenance, et cetera. We've been able, I know this has been well discussed, we've been able to defer that to T-SPLOST, so we've been able to really reduce that down. One of the reasons we've been able to kind of keep the millage rate down. COLAs increase over time. As we're getting into the winter months, everybody's we got kind of a taste of winter today. In fact, it will probably be longer, you're not gonna put plows on the equipment, so we'll be. And unfortunately, Mother Nature doesn't always snow on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It seems like it's always weekends when they gotta come in. They worked on Christmas. They worked on Christmas Day, I think, about 4 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
say that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
so we budget, again, health insurance, all of the associated costs. A little more retirement, workers' comp, let's budget for that. And those guys are out in the field just like police all the time. They have that additional exposure, which comes into play, and I know there's been some, unfortunately, we've had some workers' comp claims. Again, insurance, that keeps going up, people, you know, summer. Communication, cell phones, internet, et cetera, electricity, gas, diesel. Unfortunately, gas is one of those things we cannot offset with these SPLOST. Again, just trying to fund that. That budget has gone down about $13,000. And then the next is this is our cultural. This is everything from the fireworks to this would be if you rent a band. This would be everything from supplies and materials, food and sit-ups. That's usually when we park, like Christmas parties, things like that. And then the inventory to $2,000. The marketing committee was gracious enough this year to buy the shirts, but typically we always kind of have a 4th of July shirt. Typically that's funded on that. That's pretty much stayed the same, $31,000. We may see an increase in the fire. The gentleman did reach out to me that because of the tariffs, et cetera, that they've gone up. However, we will obviously shop around for that. However, those companies are kind of few and far between, but we've been using Munolin. We've got a great relationship with them. We are tentatively on the schedule with them for the Friday the 3rd, but we'll put that down. So, and next parks, typically we don't fund for that. Most of what we do, we do public works. Housing and development, when Jim Powder, our housing code guy, came on board a couple of years ago, we were funding him at 32 hours a week, which is our minimum to be full-time. Just the amount of growth that we're seeing, everybody's, just seeing the permits, inspections he does. He's been going over. It's just really, I think Jim has great time management skills, but it's really a 40-hour a week job to do it right. And that increases, you're adding an extra day a week, 52 weeks, so there's a natural. That in the COLA, that's the biggest, largest increase that you see there. And then funding for retirement, unemployment, workers' comp, et cetera, just scroll up somewhere. So his budget does jump up to from 68 to 84, but again, a big chunk of that is the fact that we are now fully funding him 40 hours a week. Economic development, the 5,000 that you see there, that is where we park the contribution to the marketing committee. supplies and materials and then stuff to resell. We have gone over this year, however, if you go back up to that, on the line item where we park that money we receive, we don't make a lot of money, but that's all of the t-shirts, the dog bowls, all of the stuff that people buy, that they always come in, the hospitality stuff. But, just a slight increase there in the proposed budget. As you scroll down, as you see, it zeroes itself out of 1,637,634, 1,623,734. Operations, and then 1390 capital, it comes out. So the revenues do match the expenditures. So here's the proposed balanced budget. And, again, there's a lot of fun. We base this off the Georgia chart of accounts that we go by that they mandate. We do have a lot of accounts there, and a lot of money that goes in and out of the city. So anyway, I'll stop there. If anybody has any council, everybody has any questions, concerns, or thoughts, I will do my best to answer.
Council?
Stuff you see year over year, but anyway,
You answered a lot of our questions at our original
Right.
meeting, thank you, on Friday. Any comments or questions from the meeting participants?
This slide here, you may have to zoom in a little bit, so, again, this is a lot of information here, just some comparisons. The brownish color. This is current year, this is proposed year, you see a little bit of increase, this is the differences between year to year. $94,000, about 10,000 more on the diverse application. Will generate about almost $104,000. And as you scroll down, there's the differences, the breakdown of where those extras go. You see at the very bottom, zeros out, 100, that's where the 103,000 goes. Then you see the percent increases there. If you scroll again, go back to the top of the slide if you don't mind, Simon. And I know some are gonna, yeah. Miles. So, yeah, 68% property tax, right at 32%, all the other things, there's 100%. Council, not quite one, mayor, 0.15, elections, 0.5, admin, 24%, building grounds, 5, judicial, 0.21, police, 36, fire, right 11, roads, 14, special events, right at 2, housing, 5, and then not quite 1. So there's your 100% breakdown. Again, this is all online. If anybody really wants to look at this, but this kind of gives you the idea of what's what. And then, if you want to just go a little bit more. All right, so is anybody, that's pretty much the overview of the general fund. Again, by Georgia law, the general fund is the only budget that you are required by law to adopt, but we always historically adopt the water and trash. That's important, but, if there's no questions, I will just continue on. Okay. As was mentioned earlier, we know this is a elephant in the room. It's flat budget. We know that, its costs have gone up. But we have seen a little bit of increase. I mentioned Friday, one of the things that we're hoping we're gonna see some returns on over time is our water loss. We've really been able to get a grip on that. At one time, we were losing over 60%. I know that's been well discussed. Last month with 15%. This most recent month, we're right at 20%. A little bit more loss, but there's always this, but the environmental protection folks, the state, the goal is to be 20% or less. So we are definitely going in the right direction. But water charges, we're thinking about 460. We've had a little bit, a few more homes. The tap on fees, we budgeted 15, we received 9, the tap is $3,000. I think we'll probably see 1 or 2 more this year. I've got some indicators. And from what we're seeing, obviously we're proposing 8 for next year, but from what Jim's here, but Indicators are that from talking with some of the builders, I know one builder has said he wants to build like 4 new houses next year. That'd be half of those. But indicators are is that we are gonna see some single family growth next year. Late fees interest, we've historically been taking a little bit more on that, thinking about $7,500. The other fee, home serve, the reason it's gone from 24,000 to 35,000 is it went up like 90 cents a month. As you know, that was adopted last year again, last month again. That's an optional service. You're not required to do that. And then interest revenues, we should be on track to taking about 32,000. That's actually for 10 months right there. So we still have 2 more months left to receive. So we should be somewhere around, probably gonna be a little low, the 36, but we should hit that 32, and I think we'll be there next year. Unless rates substantially drop, but you don't know. And then on the expenditure side, increased COLAs, overtime again, water breaks, things like that. Thank goodness that we've been able to really do some things to try to go in the right direction with that. Health insurance, FICA, Medicare, that's all percentage based on the totals there. Professional services, that's the audit that we do. Technical services, repairs and maintenance, that's everything from MPE that come in and help us with pumps and motors and things like that repair work, to that it takes to run the water system, repairs and maintenance. Again, having folks come in and do things that we can't handle ourselves. The insurance, we're thinking that's gonna be about the same. Communications, cell phones, internet, travel dues, education, training. I know Cody went to several this year, probably a little less next year, we don't know. The other purchase services is that's where we get paid. The way that works is Service bills us. That's where we park that expenditure. And then on that revenue side, when we receive the water bill, we get it back. So that's where that comes in. Supplies and materials, we have had to buy a lot of things this year. Between the kits to build the PRVs, we had to buy a motor for, what we did for seven.
We put a new pump and motor and pipe,
That was what.
all the way, and wire.
That was like 25,000.
It was right $20,000.
How many more PRV pits do we have to do? Cody?
Seven, maybe, or
I
seven.
think it's 8, we've done
Eight.
9, we
You've
have
done nine,
17.
okay. Great,
So,
that's obviously made a big difference.
you know, those were unbudgeted expenditures, you know, there's unknown. But again, as we've been really trying to take the proverbial bull by the horns.
Well, not only that,
Yeah.
but Cody and them replaced all the PRV. We didn't have to pay for someone to come in and do that,
Right,
but you all did.
Yeah,
that.
that's a good thing, you know, MPE now, they charge us, I guess, probably to train for the first one, but instead of having to have them come in,
Right.
fortunately, we've got folks on staff that can do that. So that's good.
And we finished the telemetry for all the water tanks.
We have,
We
not.
have, how many more do we have to go?
Let's see, we got Sky High tank and Wyman Ridge tank,
Those are the only two?
as far as water tanks, yes. ma'am.
Okay. Do we have that was that in this year's budget or is it gonna be in this coming up budget, Jason? Cause it's what, 10,000 a
Yes,
hit?
about $10,000
That's what I
a
thought.
spot.
Uh-huh.
That has not been budgeted, Madam Mayor,
Okay.
as discussed, I mean, that is something, again.
If you'll explain, Cody, what that does for us.
Okay, so the SCADA system, it allows us to monitor our water levels in the tanks through our cell phones or computers. It also sends alarms to our phone if there's a sudden drop in water. That way, you know, we're not draining the full tank when there's a water leak or something like that.
Right now, the police are monitoring our levels on those two tanks. Is that right, Chief?
Yeah.
How often do you all go by those?
Usually twice a year.
Twice a shift? Okay,
So
so
four times-
obviously the telemetry,
Four times a day.
4 times a day. Okay, so obviously the telemetry would save the city some money. Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Save them
Coach.
some time.
And save them some time, yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Jason.
Gas, diesel, small equipment, the food is more incentive. Again, I kind of talked about things like, parties, Christmas parties, so some of that's paid for the general fund, some of that's paid for the water fund. We fund for things like that, and then, of course, that comes out to, the capital, the 10,856, that is just like we have a capital lease for the police car, the police chief's vehicle. That is the F-450 that we bought. And this should be the first payment of 5. Again, that's once a year. And even though that is a capital lease, we will own that asset once it's done, but that was about expensive vehicle, 11,005. That is the debt service. That is the interest on the Jeep loan. The 2 loans we have, one is interest-free, one is at 3%. It comes out, so that's what we're paying there. If you include those costs, operations, 553,000. And then we're anticipating like 559, again, tight, we know that. But, it's been that way year over year, but anyway, so, trash, we've had a few extra customers, which is the increase that we've seen, some new housing, et cetera. And also we found some billing mistakes where some folks were getting underbilled, so that's why some of the increase we see there. I want to thank Summer and those who we've been able to, some folks are underpaying, but everybody's paying fair now, so, about 223,000, what we're thinking we're gonna see next year, again, COLAs, the FICAs, everything, the overtime, it's small, 1,500. The folks that typically are paid out of trash, they're not the ones that don't call on overtime. So, typically we're not as much need there. Again, FICA, and that's just percentages out of the total salaries. Our biggest fee is our disposal, the compactors that we have, the dumpsters that we have, some of the facilities throughout. Again, every time they come in, I think it's $500, is it 400 or 500? Every time they come into the dumpster, they do that at least once a week. Get them out there, it adds up, and everything else, and then gas, diesel. Again, it's for all intents and purposes is break even. So that is our 2 funds there. Again, the marketing committee, as I stated, they will be bringing the council in January. And again, we will be bringing something in January for the roadside. So a lot of line items there to go over. And it's, this is the capital improvement plan. Again, this is probably something, this is kind of a planning tool. We basically based it on what we know or what we think we know for next year, 13.9. That is the payment on the police chief's vehicle. The 100,000 you see there in SPOS, infrastructure and equipment. We should start seeing that money next year. It's 594,000 over 5 years, so 100,000 a year, give or take what we're seeing, so we're parking that there. So there is some, when you asked about the telemetry, Madam Mayor, when that SPOS money comes in, we did earmark $400,000 of that 595 for infrastructure, so that's how we could fund that if we need to next year. I wanted to answer that question, but I wanted to get to this point.
Yeah. No problem.
And then the other 50,000, that's, we put some money there, that's for like everything from, if we had to buy a police vehicle or something like that, if one of them broke down. Right now, we're pretty good shape for the police vehicles. When we first got here, they were riding around in Subarus, but now all the vehicles are actual police vehicles, so we're proud about that. And then that just shows how, the top line is expenditures, the bottom line is the revenue, and how we show it. That all zeroes out. Next slide. This is this is for the combined utility. The 13,000 is the interest revenue, and then the 10,856 is the capital lease on the vehicle. Again, some of that stuff we can fund with SPOS on the water side that we're going to be looking at once those funds start coming in. And this can be adjusted as needed also. This is just a planning tool. There's nothing binding about these plans, you know, what they do. And now that we know more, we'll be able to go back and modify those and accordingly. And I think that should be it.
We always have an independently contracted annual audit of our funds in Sky Valley. We have a fantastic credit rating according to our auditor, who also sends our audit to the state to look at. We had no findings, which we were really proud of this year. We have funds that we can fall back on if we do go over our budget. We know that budgets are strictly a dynamic tool to plan what we're gonna do with our money. So the city is in fantastic shape financially, and I thank you, Jason, for all that you do to keep it that way. You do a fantastic job. With that being said, he's just discussed the enterprise fund, which is the water and waste fund. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Okay, any questions or comments from our meeting participants? Fantastic, okay.
Somebody in line, so.
Nothing.
Well, you know, we had this, you know, we made sure to get this out. It's been out now for public review for, I think, about 3 weeks. And, again, if anybody has any questions beyond here, just reach out to me.
Sure.
I'll always make myself available. And we'll have another tonight at 6.
Yes, we are.
So if you didn't get enough today, you can come back tonight for some more.
Yeah, raise your hand if you want to do that. Okay, and our third budget public hearing is going to be Tuesday, November the 18th at 9 o'clock in the morning before our 10 o'clock regular council meeting, when we will address the approving of the budget. And I so appreciate y'all coming this morning, and thank you, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Everything's stay warm.
Do you want to do my budget, Jason? I'll give you a copy.
Yes.